What happens when Sofia Vergara sits across the table from Sunny Hostin on The View, and a light-hearted conversation suddenly turns into something no one in the studio expected? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. So the segment starts the way it usually does: applause, smiles, that familiar daytime energy. Whoopi Goldberg is moderating, calm as always, setting the tone. The audience is excited because Sofia Vergara is on the show, and you can feel that buzz in the room. She walks out, waving, laughing, greeting everyone with that big personality people know her for. Whoopi leans in slightly, smiling. "Sofia, it's always good to have you here." Sofia laughs, adjusting her seat. "I love coming here. You guys are always, how do you say, very dangerous with your questions." The audience laughs. Sunny smiles too, but she's already leaning forward just a bit, like she's ready to get into something more serious. Whoopi chuckles. "We try not to be dangerous. We try to be honest." Joy Behar jumps in, grinning. "Speak for yourself." Laughter again. Everything feels light, natural, exactly what viewers expect. They start off easy, talking about Sofia's latest projects, her business ventures, her family. Sofia is animated, telling stories, exaggerating moments, making the audience laugh. She talks about balancing work and life, about how she still feels surprised by her success in Hollywood. Sunny nods, listening closely. Then she tilts her head slightly and asks, "Do you ever feel like you had to change who you are to succeed in this industry?" The tone shifts just a little, not dramatically, but enough to notice. Sofia pauses for a second, still smiling. "No, I think I stayed very much myself. Maybe people wanted me to be something else, but I always said no. This is who I am." Sunny presses gently. "But don't you think sometimes the industry puts people in a box? Especially Latina women." There's a small murmur in the audience, interest, curiosity. Sofia nods slowly. "Of course. That happens. But I used it. I made it work for me. I didn't fight it. I made it my strength." Joy leans in. "You definitely made it work." Sunny doesn't smile this time. But isn't there a difference between making it work and reinforcing stereotypes? Now the energy shifts more noticeably. The audience quiets down a bit. Sofia's smile tightens just slightly, not gone, but different. "What do you mean?" Sunny keeps her tone calm, but firm. Sometimes when you lean into certain roles or personas, it can contribute to how others see Latina women. Loud, overly sexualized, comedic relief. Do you ever think about that responsibility? There's a pause. A real one. Whoopi watches closely, but doesn't interrupt yet. Sofia exhales a small laugh, but it's not as light as before. "I think people take things too seriously sometimes. I am funny. I am loud. That's me. Why is that a problem?" A few audience members clap. Others stay quiet. Sunny nods slowly. "It's not a problem to be who you are. But representation matters. And when there are limited roles, the ones that are visible carry more weight." Sofia shifts in her seat. "So what are you saying? That I shouldn't have taken those roles? That I should have waited for something different?" Sunny responds, "I'm asking if you think about how those roles impact the broader perception of Latina women." Joy tries to ease the tension. "I think she's done pretty well, if you ask me." Light laughter, but it doesn't fully land. Sofia looks directly at Sunny now. "I think I opened doors. Before me, how many Latina actresses were leading shows like I did? Not many." The audience claps louder this time. Sunny nods, acknowledging that point. "That's true, and that's important. But opening doors and shaping perception can happen at the same time." Whoopi finally steps in gently. "This is a good conversation. Let's keep it respectful." Sofia nods quickly. "I am being respectful." Sunny responds just as quickly. "So am I." There's a slight overlap in their voices, and that's when you feel it. That real talk show tension where both people are trying to stay composed, but neither is backing down. Sofia leans back a little, then forward again, her voice more serious now. "I came to this country with nothing. I worked very hard. I didn't have the luxury to say no to roles, because maybe they didn't represent everyone perfectly. I took opportunities." Sunny listens, but she doesn't soften. "And that's valid. But now you're in a position where your choices influence the next generation." A quiet ripples through the audience. Sofia tilts her head, slightly incredulous. "So now I have to carry the responsibility for everyone?" Sunny answers calmly. "Public figures often do, whether they want to or not." Joy sighs softly. "Here we go." A few chuckles from the audience, but again, it's mixed. Whoopi looks between them. Let's take a breath for a second. But Sofia isn't done. No, I want to understand. Because it feels like no matter what you do, someone is going to criticize you. If I'm successful, it's a problem. If I'm funny, it's a stereotype. What is the right way? Sunny responds, it's not about right or wrong. It's about awareness. Sofia shakes her head slightly. I am aware. I just don't agree. And that line lands. You can feel it. The audience reacts, some clapping, some murmuring. Whoopi raises her hand slightly, trying to balance things. All right, we're going to keep going, but let's remember, this is what we do here. We talk. We don't have to agree. Sofia nods, but her expression is now serious, focused. Sunny sits back for a moment, then leans in again, clearly not finished. And you can tell, this conversation is only just getting started. The moment hangs there for a second longer than usual, the kind of silence that doesn't happen often on live television. You can feel everyone recalibrating. Hosts, audience, even Sofia Vergara and Sunny Hostin themselves. Whoopi leans forward slightly, her tone calm but deliberate. All right, so let's keep going, because this is actually an important conversation. Sunny nods, picking up right where she left off, her voice steady. And Sofia, I want to be clear, this isn't about criticizing your success. It's about understanding the impact that comes with it. Sofia exhales, nodding once, but her expression stays firm. I understand that, but sometimes it feels like people want to rewrite your story for you. Like they want to tell you how you should have done things. Sunny responds quickly, but not aggressively. No one is rewriting your story. I'm asking about reflection. Because when people look up to you, and they do, they also look at the roles you take, the way you present yourself. Joy shifts in her chair, glancing between them. I think there's also something to be said about audience responsibility. People interpret things in different ways. Sunny turns slightly toward Joy. That's true, but media shapes perception. We can't ignore that. Sofia leans forward again, her hands now more animated. But why is it always on the person who is succeeding to fix everything? Why is it not on the industry to create more roles? Why is it not on producers, writers? A few audience members clap at that. Sunny nods. It is on them too. Absolutely. But when you have influence, you become part of that system whether you want to or not. Sofia smiles briefly, but it's not a warm smile, it's more controlled. So what would you have wanted me to do? Say no to the biggest opportunities of my life? Say no to a show like Modern Family, because maybe it didn't check every box. Joy jumps in. That would have been a bad career move. Some laughter breaks the tension, but it fades quickly. Sunny answers. No, I'm not saying you should have said no. I'm asking if you ever questioned how those roles might reinforce certain ideas. Sofia pauses, then speaks more slowly now. Of course I think about things. I'm not unaware. But I also know that if I didn't take those roles, someone else would. And maybe they wouldn't bring the same perspective I did. The audience murmurs again, this time more divided. Whoopi nods slightly. That's a fair point. Sunny acknowledges it with a small nod, but continues. But do you think your portrayal challenged those stereotypes or leaned into them? There's a subtle shift again. This question lands sharper. Sofia tilts her head, clearly not loving the direction. I think it did both. People are not one thing. My character was not one thing. She was funny, yes, but she was also strong, smart, a businesswoman, a mother. Sunny responds. But what people remember most is often the exaggerated parts. Sofia raises her eyebrows. That's not my fault. The audience reacts, some claps, some audible Sunny leans in slightly more now. It's not about fault. It's about influence. Sofia lets out a short laugh, shaking her head. You keep saying that. Influence, responsibility. It sounds like you're saying I did something wrong. Sunny immediately shakes her head. No, I'm not saying that. Sofia responds quickly. It feels like that. Now the tension is undeniable. Whoopi raises her hand again. Okay, let's slow this down a little. But Sofia continues, her voice still controlled, but clearly more emotional now. Because I worked very hard to get where I am. And I didn't get help. I didn't have someone opening doors for me. I pushed through everything. Sunny softens her tone slightly. And that's something to be proud of. No one is taking that away from you. Sofia nods, but she doesn't look convinced. Then why does it feel like you are? There's a pause. A real, uncomfortable pause. The audience is completely quiet now. Sunny takes a breath before answering. Because sometimes conversations about impact feel personal. And I get that. but they're not meant to diminish what you've done. Joy looks at Whoopi, then back at the table. This is getting deep for daytime TV. A few light laughs, but again, it doesn't fully break the tension. Sunny continues, choosing her words carefully. As a Latina woman myself, I think about these things a lot. About how we're seen, how we're portrayed. And when someone has the kind of platform you do, it becomes part of that conversation. Sofia looks at her directly. So this is about identity now. Sunny answers calmly. It always is. That line hits differently. The audience reacts with a mix of applause and murmurs. Sofia leans back slightly, crossing her arms for the first time. I don't think it has to be that complicated. Sometimes people are just people. Not everything is a statement. Sunny responds, but when you're on a global platform, everything becomes one. Whoopi watches closely, clearly deciding when, or if, to step in again. Sofia uncrosses her arms, leaning forward once more. I think sometimes people want to turn everything into a lesson, into something political or cultural. And that's exhausting. Sunny doesn't back down. And I think ignoring those layers can be just as harmful. Now both of them are speaking with conviction, not raising their voices, but not yielding either. Joy sighs again, half joking. I'm just here trying to drink my coffee. A few audience members laugh, grateful for the momentary release. But the focus immediately returns to Sofia and Sunny. Sofia speaks again, more slowly now, choosing her words carefully. I respect your opinion. I do. But I don't agree with the idea that I should carry this weight for everyone. Sunny nods. And I respect that. But I do think that when you're in a position like yours, the weight comes whether you accept it or not. There's another pause. Whoopi finally leans in, her voice steady. This is exactly why we have these conversations. Because there isn't one answer. She looks at Sofia. You're speaking from your experience. Then at Sunny. And you're speaking from yours. The audience nods along, some clapping lightly. But even with Whoopi's attempt to balance things, the energy hasn't fully settled. Sofia adjusts her posture again, her expression still serious. I just don't want people to think I didn't think about these things. Because I did. I just made different choices. Sunny responds, and those choices are part of a bigger conversation. Sofia exhales, a small shake of her head. Everything is a bigger conversation now. That line gets a reaction. Some laughter, some agreement. But Sunny's expression doesn't change. Because it matters. And right there, you can feel it again. The conversation isn't cooling down. If anything, it's building into something even more personal, more direct. Whoopi glances toward the producers off camera for a split second, then back to the table. Because now it's clear, this isn't just a discussion anymore. It's becoming a real clash. The tension doesn't drop, it just shifts shape. You can see it in the way Sofia Vergara adjusts in her chair again, this time slower, more deliberate. And Sunny Hostin isn't leaning back anymore. She's fully engaged, elbows closer to the table, eyes focused. Whoopi senses it immediately. All right, we're still here, we're still talking, she says, her tone calm but watchful. Let's keep it going, but let's also hear each other. Sofia nods, but her expression stays firm. I am hearing. I just don't feel like I'm being heard the same way. Sunny responds quickly, but not sharply. I hear you. I just don't agree with everything you're saying. Sofia lets out a small laugh, this time clearly edged with frustration. Yes, I noticed. A ripple of nervous laughter moves through the audience. Joy shifts again, glancing between them. This is one of those moments where everyone at home is leaning in. Whoopi gives a quick side look. And so are we. Sunny takes a breath, then speaks again, slower now, like she's choosing every word carefully. Let me ask you something directly. Do you think Hollywood still limits Latino women to certain types of roles? Sofia answers without hesitation. Yes, of course. Sunny nods. Okay, so if that's true, then doesn't that make it even more important to challenge those roles when you can? Sofia leans forward immediately. But I did challenge them in my own way. Sunny raises her eyebrows slightly. How? There's a pause, not because Sofia doesn't have an answer, but because she's deciding how to say it. When I took those roles, Sofia begins, her voice steady but more intense now, I made sure the character had depth. I made sure she was not just a joke. People may focus on certain things, but that's not all she was. Sunny responds, but the industry and the audience often highlight the most exaggerated traits. That becomes the takeaway. Sofia shakes her head. That's not something I can control. Sunny replies, no, but it's something you can influence. Sofia's expression tightens again. You keep saying that like I didn't do enough. Sunny immediately shakes her head. That's not what I'm saying. Sofia leans in more, her voice slightly stronger now. Then what are you saying? Because it feels like no matter what I say, it comes back to the same thing, that I should have done more, been different. The audience is completely locked in now. No side chatter, no movement. Sunny meets her gaze directly. I'm saying that with influence comes responsibility. And sometimes that responsibility means making harder choices. Sofia doesn't respond right away. She looks down briefly, then back up. I made hard choices, she says, quieter but more pointed. You just don't agree with them. That lands. Sunny nods slowly. That's fair. There's a small shift in energy, not softer, but more direct, more honest. Joy leans in slightly. Can I just say something? Because I feel like we're circling something here. Whoopi gestures for her to go ahead. Joy continues. I think there's a difference between surviving in an industry and having the power to change it. And those are two different stages. Sofia nods immediately. Exactly. Sunny listens, then adds. And I think what I'm saying is, Sofia is no longer in survival mode. She's in a position of power. The audience reacts again, this time louder. Sofia tilts her head, clearly reacting to that. So now the expectations change. Sunny answers, yes. They do. Sofia lets out a breath, shaking her head slightly. That's a lot to put on one person. Sunny responds, it's not just you. It's anyone in that position. Sofia gestures lightly with her hands. But we're talking about me right now. A few audience members react, some clapping, some murmuring. Whoopi steps in gently. And that's because you're here. That line gets a small laugh, easing things for a second. But Sofia isn't backing down. I just think it's easy to sit here and analyze everything after the fact. When you're in it, when you're trying to build something, it's not that simple. Sunny nods, but her tone remains steady. I don't think it's simple. I think it's complicated. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. Sofia responds, talking is fine. But it starts to feel like judgment. Sunny pauses for a moment before answering. It's not judgment. It's perspective. Sofia smiles slightly, but it doesn't reach her eyes. It feels like judgment. That tension comes right back. Joy quietly says, almost to herself but still audible, this is getting real. Whoopi nods slightly, watching both of them carefully. Sunny leans back just a fraction, then forward again. Let me ask you this. If you were starting your career today, knowing everything you know now, would you make the same choices? That question hits harder than the others. The audience reacts immediately, some ohs, some shifting in seats. Sofia doesn't answer right away. She looks at Sunny, then down, then back up. That's not a fair question, she says finally. Sunny tilts her head. Why not? Sofia responds, her voice controlled but clearly emotional now. Because you're asking me to judge my past with today's standards. That's not how life works. Sunny answers, but growth comes from reflection. Sofia replies, I have reflected. That doesn't mean I regret. There's a strong reaction from the audience, applause this time. Sunny nods slowly. I didn't ask if you regret. I asked if you would do it the same way. Sofia leans forward again, her tone more intense than before. And I'm telling you, that's not a fair way to look at it. Now the overlap begins, both speaking just slightly over each other. Sunny says, I think it is fair. Sofia responds at the same time, because you're changing the context. Whoopi immediately raises her hand. Okay, one at a time. They both stop, but the tension doesn't. Whoopi looks at Sofia. Go ahead. Sofia takes a breath. What I'm saying is, I made the best decisions I could with what I had. And I'm proud of that. I'm not going to sit here and second-guess everything, because now the conversation is different. The audience applauds again, louder this time. Whoopi nods, then looks at Sunny. Sunny. Sunny takes a moment before speaking. And I respect that. I really do. But I also think that part of being in the position you're in now is being open to those questions, even if they're uncomfortable. Sofia nods slowly. I am open. I just don't agree with the premise. Sunny responds, and that's okay. There's a brief pause, one of the first moments where both of them aren't immediately responding. But it doesn't feel resolved. It feels like something's still sitting under the surface. Joy exhales softly. I feel like the audience is split right now. You can actually hear it, some clapping, some murmuring, some silence. Whoopi looks out toward the audience, then back at the table. That's what happens when you have real conversations. Sofia adjusts her posture again, her expression still serious but slightly calmer. Sunny sits back just a little, but her focus hasn't shifted. And even though the volume has lowered, the intensity hasn't. Because now it's not just about disagreement. It's about perspective, identity, responsibility. And neither of them is letting go of their side. And you can feel it, they're not done yet. There's a moment where it almost feels like things might settle. But it doesn't fully land that way. You can see it in the way Whoopi Goldberg straightens slightly, preparing to guide things toward a close, and in how Sofia Vergara and Sunny Hostin both sit back just enough to signal a pause, but not resolution. Whoopi looks between them, then out to the audience. All right, this is one of those conversations where nobody's going to walk away with a simple answer. There's a light ripple of agreement from the crowd. Sofia nods, her expression still composed, but clearly carrying the weight of everything that's just been said. And that's okay. I don't think everything needs a simple answer. Sunny nods as well, though her tone remains thoughtful. I agree, but I do think conversations like this matter, especially because people are watching and they're forming their own opinions. Whoopi gestures lightly with her hand. And that's what we always hope for here, that people think, not just react. Joy leans in slightly, finally breaking the intensity with a softer tone. I think we can all agree this was not the segment we thought we were having. That gets a genuine laugh from the audience, one of the first that actually releases some tension. Sofia smiles a little at that, though it's still restrained. No, but maybe it's the one we needed. Sunny glances at her, just briefly, and there's a small nod, an acknowledgement, not agreement, but something close to mutual respect. Whoopi picks up on that immediately. And that's growth right there. You don't have to agree to hear each other. The audience applauds, this time more unified. But even with that, the air still feels charged. Not explosive anymore, but heavy, like something meaningful just happened and everyone knows it. Whoopi turns slightly toward Sofia. Before we wrap, anything you want people to take away from this? Sofia pauses for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I just want people to understand that everyone's journey is different. And sometimes you do what you have to do to get to where you are. That doesn't mean you didn't think about the bigger picture. It just means you had to balance it with reality. The audience nods, some clapping softly. Whoopi then looks to Sunny. And you? Sunny takes a breath. I would just say, representation matters. And conversations like this aren't about tearing anyone down. They're about pushing forward, even when it's uncomfortable. A stronger round of applause follows that. Joy adds, and maybe, just maybe, we all need to give each other a little grace while we figure it out. That gets another warm reaction. Whoopi smiles slightly. That's probably the best note to end on. She turns toward the camera. We'll be right back. The applause rises as the show cuts to commercial. But even as the cameras technically stop rolling, you can still see movement at the table. Sofia leans slightly toward Sunny, saying something off mic. Sunny listens, nods once, responds quietly. It's not dramatic, not overly friendly, but it's human. Real. Like two people who just had a difficult conversation and are trying to leave it on a respectful note. Whoopi looks relieved more than anything, taking a sip from her mug. Joy exhales, shaking her head with a small smile like she just witnessed something intense but meaningful. The audience, even as the segment ends, doesn't immediately shift back to casual chatter. There's still that lingering buzz, people turning to each other, whispering, reacting. And then, almost instantly, it spills beyond the studio. Clips start circulating online within minutes. Short moments, Sofia saying, I am aware. I just don't agree. Sunny saying, with influence comes responsibility. The question about whether she would do things differently. On platforms like X, Twitter, and YouTube, the reactions split almost immediately. Some people are fully on Sofia's side. They're always trying to tear down successful women. She worked hard and made it. Why should she apologize? She opened doors, period. Others strongly support Sunny. She asked the right questions. This is what real accountability looks like. Representation isn't just about being there. It's about how you're seen. Clips from The View start trending, with headlines debating who was right, who handled it better, and whether the conversation crossed a line or hit exactly where it needed to. Even commentators and media outlets begin weighing in. Some praising the show for allowing a real, unfiltered discussion, others questioning whether it put Sofia in an uncomfortable position on live television. Backstage, after the show fully wraps, the atmosphere is calmer but still reflective. Sofia is seen talking briefly with producers, her tone measured. She's not visibly upset, but she's serious, like someone processing everything that just happened. Sunny speaks with a few members of the production team as well, equally composed, but clearly still in that analytical mindset. There's no dramatic fallout, no one storms out, no big scene, but there's a noticeable shift. Everyone knows that segment wasn't just another interview. It was one of those moments that sticks. Later that day, both Sofia and Sunny address it in subtle ways. Sofia posts a short message thanking fans for their support, emphasizing pride in her journey and the importance of staying true to oneself. Sunny, in a separate post, talks about the importance of dialogue, even when it's uncomfortable, and how growth comes from facing difficult conversations. Neither directly criticizes the other, but neither backs down from their perspective either. And that's what keeps the conversation alive. Because now it's not just about what happened on that stage, it's about what it means beyond it. Back in the studio, the next day, the show briefly references the moment again. Whoopi acknowledges it in her usual calm way. Yesterday, we had a conversation that got a lot of people talking. And that's what this table is for. The audience applauds. And just like that, it becomes part of the larger legacy of moments on The View. Those real, unscripted exchanges that people keep coming back to. But for viewers watching at home, it's still fresh. Still unresolved. Still something they want to talk about. Because it wasn't loud, explosive drama. It was something more real. Two perspectives. Two experiences. One table. And no easy answer. So now it comes down to you. What do you think? Was Sofia Vergara right to stand her ground and defend her journey? Or did Sunny Hostin raise important questions about representation and responsibility that needed to be asked? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.